Hi there! In this video, let's create a ToDo app using the Get Flutter package. The project we will create together will allow to add new tasks, edit existing tasks, make tasks as done, and dismiss tasks. When you dismiss, you can easily undo the dismiss operation. So let's create the new app. Open the terminal and type Flutter create GetX ToDo app. You can choose any name you like. This will be the name of your project. So I'll wait until Flutter creates a new project structure. In my case, I'm using the Linux version of Flutter. I have made a tutorial where I installed the Flutter for Linux desktop. You can find this in my channel. So the project was created. So let's enter in the project's directory. I will type cd GetX ToDo app and now open the project inside Visual Studio Code. Here you have the project open inside Visual Studio Code and you have the default file structure that Flutter creates every time you create a new project. So let's open the lib directory and create some other directories that will be the structure of our project. Inside my lib folder, the same folder that contains the main.dart file, let's create three directories: controllers, screens, and models. One folder for GetX controllers, one folder for application models for model data, and one folder for screens. Now let's define the project dependencies. Open the pubspec.yaml file and inside dependencies section, type get 3.4.3. At this time this video was recorded, the current version of Get was this, but if there's no breaking changes, you can change to a more recent version. Now save your pubspec.yaml file, and by just saving this, Flutter will run automatically Flutter pub get. If you got some problems with the dependencies, you can manually type Flutter pub get inside your terminal. Now let's make a cleanup inside the main.dart file. Remove all the code, select all and delete. Let's remove this. So keep just the void main function with the run app function and import Flutter material Dart. First, let's create a model for our app. A model is a data structure that we will use to create new objects that will represent some kind of element. In our case, it's a ToDo app. Let's create a ToDo model, a ToDo class that will model the ToDo objects. So inside model, create a new file. Let's call this ToDo.dart. Just type class ToDo. Let's define a field for the content of the ToDo, string text, and another field that will hold the status of done or not done yet. And I will define a controller to create new objects with this .text, this .done. The done field will have a default value that will be false. When you add new tasks, they are in the false status. Now that's okay, just save and close the ToDo.dart file. Now let's create the ToDo controller. The controller will hold the state of the application using the Get package. Now I will create ToDo controller.dart inside controllers directory. Here I will define a class ToDoController that extends GetXController. This class will have a state that is a list of to-dos. So let's create a list of to-dos that we will call to-dos. To make this reactive, we have to change the type of this list of to-dos. It now is a list of to-do, but let's transform this in a Rx list. You can do this in two ways. You can change the type Rx list to-dos, but there's a more friendly way. I will set this as a variable to-dos receives a new list of to-dos, and I will add an annotation here that is observable. So automatically GetX transforms this structure, a list of to-do, transforms this into an Rx list of to-dos of the same type, obviously. Now we have created a very simple controller. So now let's create the user interface. Now let's create the screen that will be used to add new to-dos, to add new tasks to our to-do app. So inside the screens directory, create a new file, TodoScreen.dart. Import the Flutter material package, and now let's create a stateless widget that will be the widget that represents this screen. So just type STLE and VS Code will suggest the stateless widget auto-completion. Now let's call this TodoScreen and let's start to build our screen. It's a stateless widget. It's not connected to any kind of controller that GetX provides. So let's just draw the interface. For make this, I will change my main.dart file to run an app, and this app will return get material app, and the home screen will be the to-do screen. Let's remove the debug banner. I have the to-do screen. Let's restart the app. It's okay, I've got a black screen just because it returns a container. Let's return a scaffold. I will not use an app bar, I will use just a body, and this body contains a container. This container contains a column. This column contains children. Inside these children I will have expanded to hold the text controller, the text widget, and a row to hold the buttons. As child of the expanded, I will create a text field. Let's define autofocus to be true, so it receives the focus as soon as the screen is open. Let's create some kind of decoration. We'll create input decoration. I will define a hint text. What do you want to accomplish? And let's define a border. Input border dot none. Focus that border. When the field grabs the focus, it will have no border. Now we will set a style for the text. We will add the text style. Font size of 25 pixels. Let's define a keyboard type. Text input type dot mode line. And let's set the property max lines to 999. it will ensure that this field will grow up and occupy the maximum space available on the screen, so the user can type a long text without the limitation of the number of lines. Here in the bottom, I will have a row with children. Let's define a main X alignment as main X alignment space between for the two buttons be separated by the available space. Children to raised buttons. One for each action, one for add and one for cancel. The first will be for cancel. Child text cancel. Let's set a color. Colors dot red and define one pressed property as an empty function. For the other button, I will define child text add colors dot green on pressed an empty function too. Here a cancel button and an add button. But to improve this, let's add some padding for the container. Padding edge insets.o will add padding. Now you have an expanded text here, and the user can add multi-line text. Cancel button and an add button. Now let's create another screen. It will be the index screen or home screen .dart. The same here. Let's import package Flutter material.dart and create new stateless widget. Call it home screen. I will change the main.dart file with the home for the home screen. Now we can easily see what we are creating. At this time, just a container. And here, let's replace this container with a scaffold. I will use an app bar. Title GetX to-do list. The text and set here a body. As a scaffold body, I have a container, so you have a scaffold with an app bar and an empty body with just a container. Now let's make this screen interact with our controller. So let's create a final ToDo controller variable that will receive get.put. Let's import get here and create a new instance of ToDo controller. Now this home screen can interact using this instance with ToDo controller. Here inside the container, let's create a child, and this child will be an OBX widget. This takes a callback and returns a list view dot separated. The list view dot separated requires some mandatory parameters: an item builder, a separator builder, and an item count. The item count will be ToDo controller dot ToDo's, ToDo controller dot ToDo's dot length, the length of the list of ToDo controller. The builder will be a context and an index, and this will return a list style. And the separator builder will be just a callback that returns a divider widget. Now let's create the list style. It has a title, that is a text, and the text is from TodoController.todos add this index.text. Let's define a style for the text. If the task is a red zone, the text color will be head and decorated with a strike. And if the task is not done yet, the text will be dark following the default app style. So let's check here if TodoController.todos at this index is done. If yes, we will return a text style, and if not, return another text style. If it's done, the color will be colors.red and decoration, text decoration dot line through. And if it's ready, and if it's not done, let's define a color to color from theme of context text theme dot body text one dot color. That's okay. We have now the decoration and the color for the text of list styles. Each list style will be a task. For each list style, let's add a one tab function, and this function will be empty now. Let's create this in the future. Let's define trailing to. It will be a checkbox, and the value will be from the controller to the controller ToDo's index.done and an onChanged method. An onChanged method that receives the new value and makes the update to the controller. As we have already an instance of the controller here, we can implement this now. First, let's verify what element have changed. And it's from TodoController.todos index. Let's replace the done value with the new value that comes from a parameter in this callback function, and just update the ToDo list inside the controller. Controller ToDo's is in index receives the changed element. Finally, let's create a floating action button that will connect this screen with the ToDo screen that will allow to add tasks. Here in the scaffold, let's create a floating action button. It will be a floating action button that will have a child icon, icons.add, and it's okay. Floating action button with a child and with an onPressed function. Now let's use another feature of Get, the navigation Get.to, and let's create a new instance of TodoScreen. And just by clicking here, you can navigate to the ToDo screen. Now let's switch the editor to the ToDo screen and let's implement the cancel button. Here you have the raised button for the cancel option. And now here let's just type get dot, we'll have to import get here, Get.back. And just by clicking here, let me hot reload. Just by clicking here, you can go back to the index, to the home screen. Now let's connect the ToDo screen to the controller in order to add new tasks. Now inside the ToDo screen class, let's create a final ToDoController variable. And this will not create a new instance like we did inside home screen. It will just get.find of type ToDoController. But this is optional. You can just let it this way. You can just use get.find and it will understand that we are finding for a ToDoController. Now let's make the add function. But for getting the value of this text field, we will need a text editing controller. So let's create a text editing controller. Text editing controller. It's just a new instance. And set the controller here inside the text field. Controller, I will set as a text editing controller. Here you can define even an initial value for the text, but we will not use this option at this moment, okay? Now let's make the add function here. You have the raise button. Let's create the onPressed method, onPressed property. Just type ToDoController dot ToDos dot add and create a new ToDo with text from text editing controller dot text. Oh, it's done. You can now add some text here and add. It will appear here in the list. But when you add new text, you will want to close this screen. So just add here Get.back. Now every time you add some task, we will make a hot reload. Every time you add a new task, it will close this screen and go back for the home screen. Now it's done. We can add new tasks. You can also check tasks and make them look like they are really done. Okay, now let's make the editing function. But I will change this. I will make this trailing here as a leading. So let's go back to the home screen and replace here. Change trailing, replace with leading. And on trailing, let's add icons dot chevron right. Okay, this will allow the user to notice that can add each task. But let's create the code to make the navigation between the two screens and allow the editing function. When editing some entry of this list of tasks, you will need to know what is the index of the item you are editing. So go to the ToDo screen and let's create a constructor here. I will add a final property int index and define a ToDo constructor that receives an index. So I have a ToDoScreen constructor, and this constructor receives an index that will represent the index of the item you are editing. In the case you are just adding a new item, the index will be null. Now let's go back to home screen. And here in home screen, when the user taps one of these list styles, just make get.to and send the user to TodoScreen. Define the index of the item that was clicked. Now let's go back to TodoScreen and make some modifications in order to fill here with the value of the item that is being edited. Here in TodoScreen, inside the build function, create a string variable called text and define this as an empty string. Now you verify if this dot index dot is null. If it's null, text will be empty. If it's not null, let's add the not operator here. If it's not null, text will receive TodoController dot ToDo's index dot text. And now here inside the text editing controller, define the text property being equal to text. Now it changes. When you click some of these tasks, you will see the text field filled with the current text value. Now let's modify the behavior of onPressed event on the add button. First, let's modify the text. If this index is null, so you are adding, otherwise you are editing. And here I will make the same verification on the onPressed event. If this index is null, then you place the code of insert. Otherwise you will modify the element var editing. Let's create a new variable called editing, and this variable will receive the element from TodoController dot ToDo's index. Editing dot text will be replaced with text editing controller dot text. And let's update TodoController dot ToDo's add this index with editing. By making the modification this way, you are explicitly notifying GetX that some value inside the ToDo's list has changed. So you cannot modify the item directly. You cannot make TodoController ToDo's index dot text. You have to extract the element, change the element, and then replace the current element with the edited element. Now let's try. I have here a text equal to task 3. I will change to task 3.3. Edit. It's okay. Now it's done. It's making all the tasks that it was supposed to do. Now let's add the persistence function here. When the user reloads the application, all data is lost. Every time you close the app, all data will be lost. So let's add some persistent storage here. For this, let's use another solution from GetX. Let's use GetX Storage. Enter in pub.dev and search for Get Storage. This is the package that we use for storage. It's in current version 1.3. So let's open the pubspec.yaml file and add get storage 1.3.0. Flutter will make the pub get automatically, and you will need to restart the application to import the new dependency. Now, to make the ToDo object easily serializable, you will have to create two methods here inside this class. The first will be a factory method, ToDo.fromJSON, that will receive a map of string dynamic called JSON and will return a new instance of ToDo object. And this instance will be filled with the text from JSON and the done value from JSON. Another method we will have to create will be the toJSON, and this method will return a map of type string dynamic, a JSON object. You call this toJSON and just return a map with the properties filled with text. Text and done. And now it's okay. You have a ToDo.fromJSON, a factory method that will return an object of this class, and a toJSON method that returns a map of JSON objects filled with the values in the object. With this done, let's modify our code to use the get storage package. Now let's initialize the get storage package here in the main.dart file. First, call using an await get storage.init. By using await here, it will require you change this function to async. Now let's go to ToDoController, and here let's override the onInit method. Let's set up some kind of reaction should be called every time the list of to-dos changes. Let's use the ever function. It will listen to to-dos and will make a callback that will allow us to create reaction here. Every time the to-dos variable changes, you will save this on a persistent storage. So every time you have a change, you get a new instance of getStorage.write. You can choose any name you want here. It's just a key. And let's transform this to-dos to a simple list, a simple Dart list. Just import the get storage package here in the TodoController class, and it's okay. Now every time the value changes, the value of to-dos changes, you will make a call to get storage, and it will write into the persistent storage the value of the list of to-dos as a JSON. Now, every time the user opens the app, you have to verify if there's some data previously saved by the user. In order to do this, let's make the reverse operation. Let's call the getStorageRead function. Here we have a list of stored to-dos that we'll get from getStorageRead to-dos. We can specify the type of file we are reading. Now let's verify if stored to-dos, if it's not new. If it's not new, if there was data saved inside the persistent storage, now you have to load this inside the to-dos variable here. You can do this just by typing to-dos receives stored to-dos dot map JSON element here will be passed to to-do dot from JSON, and you pass the e value here that came here from the callback dot toList dot obs. If you omit the obs here, you have a wrong value. Will be a value that will not be reactive. You have to add this annotation to the end of the list. Other way to do this is just by doing xList and passing the list as a parameter. These two lines make the same operation, but this is a shortcut using an annotation. Now let's try. I will restart the app, and now it's working. Even if you restart the application, you have the same values here. I will restart and everything was retrieved from the persistent storage. The last feature, let's create a dismiss value. If you want to clean up the list of tasks, let's make it easy to swipe right and delete some tasks from the to-do list. So let's go to the home screen and let's wrap the list style element with a new widget, and this will be a dismissible element that has the list style as a child. Here, let's create a key that is a mandatory field for the dismissible, and you can use here a unique key element and an on dismissed that receives a callback here. When the user dismisses some of these list styles, I will have to remove it from the controller. So I will first persist it here, or remove it, that receives the value of TodoController.toDo's index. And this variable will be useful in the future if I implement the undo function. And now make a call to TodoController.toDo's.remove at index. Now I want to show a simple snackbar. I will use get.snackbar. Title, task removed, and message. The task was successfully removed. Now I will use here removed.text. So let's use the hot reload. It's possible to dismiss a task and receive a notification here in the snack bar. But I want to add the undo function. I will create a button, main button, inside the snack bar. It will be a flat button with the text undo, and on press it will make it will reinsert the removed element inside the same index in the ToDo controller ToDos. So it will make ToDo controller dot ToDos dot insert index, and I will pass here the removed item. When the user clicks the undo button, I will have to avoid the user click it many times. So I will make a verification here. If removed dot is null, I will simply return. I will not execute this part of code. It's just a protection here. After the insert, the removed value will be set to null. And if the snackbar is open, if get dot is snackbar open, then I will execute a Get.back in order to close the open snackbar. So let's verify if everything is okay. I will dismiss this. Undo, it's back. Remove it, undo, it's back. We create a new one. Remove it, it's back. Remove it, back. So we finished this project. The source code of this project will be available on my GitHub repository, so you can find the link in the description of this video. If this kind of content is useful for you, please give a like and subscribe to this channel for more videos about Flutter and Flutter packages like Get. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on a next video. Bye!